A couple of years ago, I was getting ready for a night out. I was doing my makeup as I have for many decades in the bathroom, but when I leaned into the mirror to fix my eyeliner, I no longer saw the woman I was expecting to look back at me. I saw a softness in my jawline I hadn't invited. I saw a tiredness in my eyes that a good night's sleep wasn't going to fix. And for the first time, I didn't reach for a serum or a hack. I just sat down on the edge of the tub and I felt incredibly sad. We spent billions of dollars trying to anti-age. We talk about HRT, we talk about weightlifting, and we talk about optimization and longevity. But we almost never talk about that quiet, heavy heartbreak of losing the version of ourselves that we have learned to love and live with for decades. Today, I'm not talking about how to fix your body. I'm talking about how to grieve it. Because you cannot move into the power of your second act of your 50s and beyond if you're still mourning the ghost of your first act. I'm Sonia Flores, holistic life and business coach, podcast producer, and your host. Welcome to Modern Latina in Midlife. This is a conversation for anyone who has ever felt like a stranger in their own skin. This is a story time episode. This is something that has been weighing on me this week more heavily than it has. And there was something that sparked that, something that happened over the weekend. This is one of those behind the scenes peek into my own aging journey. So what happened over the weekend was one of those mirror shock moments. Now, I've watched my face age over the years, the wrinkles and the sagging and the thinner skin and the texture change, because I'm always looking in the mirror, right? I mean, we're putting makeup on and getting ready to go out. And as somebody who's worn makeup since I was a teenager, I've paid a lot of attention to my face. And I know and I have felt that my body's been changing, of course. And it's been very, very different. It's been reacting very different, probably for the last 10 years, specifically as it relates to body weight changes and where the body fat is accumulating now, around the abdomen. I just never thought that would be me. And I understand the reasons behind it now. I read a very powerful book that really helped me understand myself and all the things that are happening to my body, all the symptoms that I've been experiencing for the last 10 years that were unexplained, that I was thinking were all unrelated. And they're not. They're all related to perimenopause and menopause and the change in hormones. And that book is The New Menopause. And it is amazing. It is eye-opening. I took it with me to a doctor appointment because I was looking for the hormones, basically, to help me deal with the symptoms of perimenopause, or as it happened to be, I was already in menopause at that point. So I took the book in with me, and when the doctor looked at it and said, "Oh, that's a great book, I read it," I said, "This is my doctor. This girl, she's going to understand me." And I did. I walked out with a prescription for an estrogen patch, and that was very, very helpful. But that's not what I'm here to talk about today. What I'm talking about today is I'm not coming at you with any tips or mindset shifts or a different way of looking at things. I'm coming in here just to share my journey and just to share this feeling of grief that of shock and grief that's coming over me. And I cannot be the only one feeling this way. Over the weekend, as we often do, my boyfriend and I decided to go to the driving range to hit some golf balls. And I wore this really cute golf dress that I got in Isle of Palms in South Carolina when I was there over the fall. And it was really warm here in Southern California on Sunday. It was 84. And so I put this little dress on that was a little tighter on the top. And it fit great. I was happy. I was getting ready to go. I was just like doing some final things. And I happened to walk by the mirror. I wasn't even intending to look at my reflection, but it happened. I saw my reflection in the mirror and it stopped me in my tracks. And I said, this is becoming a big issue. And my boyfriend, who was standing by the door, turns around and says, yep. I'm like, what do you mean, yep? What are you talking about? What do you think I'm talking about? And he said, your boobs. I know. Do not think, what? I know how this comes across, but no, it's a big problem for me. Because as many of you might relate, I have one breast that is larger than the other. It's been this way since I was very, very young. And I've told the doctor and I was concerned many years ago. And he said, or she, I can't even remember. It was probably a he, I don't know. This is very normal. It is very normal for one breast to be larger than the other, one arm to be longer than the other, one eye to be bigger than the other. Like perfect symmetry is not really a thing in our bodies. Our bodies, there are differences, our fingers might be different lengths and it's common. So he's like, there's nothing to worry about. Everything is fine. You're healthy. And so I left it alone. I'm like, okay, so it is what it is. I have one breast larger than the other. But when I caught my reflection in the mirror this weekend, it looked very much larger than I've ever seen it in comparison to the other one. It was a big difference. And previously, if I looked close enough, I can see the difference. And the reason why I could tell the difference before is because my bra always fit a little bit different. Like one had just a little bit of a poof popping out a little bit than the other. And I hadn't given it much thought lately. But for about the last year, I've not worn like a regular bra because it's uncomfortable. So I've been wearing these other like bralette things that don't have an underwire and they're just much more comfortable. And so I looked at myself in the mirror and this one breast was way larger than the other one. And it was very noticeable because the dress was fitted on the top. And it was a huge difference. And I just thought to myself, oh my God, how and when did this happen? How did it get so out of control? And of course I turned around and tell my boyfriend, why didn't you say anything? He's like, I just didn't know if it was normal or not. I didn't want to make you feel self-conscious. Or he's like, what if it's totally normal and I'm sitting here bringing something up and it's going to make you feel bad and self-conscious? And I get it. And I respect that. And I appreciate him thinking about how that would make me feel. And in this moment, he's like, yeah, but that one is, yep. It's going rogue. And It's funny right now, but this is the first time I've laughed at it because all week it's just been top of mind. And I realized in that moment, I said, well, I need to change my bra. And I was, wearing one of these bralettes that I've been wearing. And I said, no, I need to put on I have, different sports bras that fit differently. And I was like, nope, I need one of those running sports bras. And so I'm like, I got to change. And I changed in that, those running sports bras are really tight and they really like hold it all together. So I can't wear one of those all day. But that's what I had to wear in order to make things look a little bit more even. But that was early in the morning on Sunday. And it's just something that really just struck me. It just really stayed with me all day. And it just made me feel so sad for my old body. And I immediately went into like fix it mode. And although I've been thinking and desiring to have my breasts done to, get a breast lift. I mean, I breastfed my child and there went everything. I just hadn't done it. I just couldn't find myself a way to justify the cost while I was a single mother trying to raise two boys. Like, how am I going to go spend this money when what if my boys need this for college or something else? Like, I couldn't justify it at the time. And so I just hadn't done anything. I've had a couple of consultations over the years. One was probably about 15 years ago, and the last one probably about 5 years ago, and I just didn't move forward with it. It's just an insane amount of money to spend on something like this. It felt like that was a thought. That thought that I had was that it was an insane amount of money. And so I just never did it. But on Sunday, I was like, okay, I can no longer keep this. At this point, I almost feel like I need it. It just, yeah. I guess I'm finding myself trying to justify that decision, and I guess I don't need to. It's something that I want to do for myself. And so immediately I got on, I messaged a cousin who happens to be a plastic surgeon. And we initiated the conversation of, what that would be like and some logistics. And I just have some things to think about and what that could look like. And, being the plastic surgeon that he is, of course, he's like, yeah, like, why don't we just get it all done while we're at it? Make you look like super fit, and do the mommy makeover, basically, is what he suggested, which is what the surgeons that I had visited in those consultations that I did 15 years ago and 5 years ago, I had also suggested. He said it's just going to look out of place to like have your boobs done and be all perky and then the rest of your body's kind of falling behind, and it's not going to look like it fits the body. Anyways, whatever, that's neither here nor there. That's a decision that I need to make. And I've always been one to support women who feel like they want to feel better in their bodies. And if that's something you want to do for yourself, I respect that. I'm not here to say what to do or what not to do and what's good and what's bad, and you're not embracing aging. Everybody's journey is different. Embrace aging as you see best fit for you. This episode is not about anti-aging, spending money on treatments or surgeries. This is about that invisible loss. And so We often hear about that moment a woman catches her reflection and doesn't quite recognize the person looking back. So that was my mirror shock moment. The first one I feel happened gradually by looking at my face, and although I've seen the changes in my body, that was a shocker to me. And all week I have found myself mourning that body that I used to have and wishing I could have that body back. And how unfortunate that I spent so many years being so hard on it and judging it and criticizing it and not loving it fully. And it's a grieving process. It's emotional. And I know I cannot be the only one experiencing this. I recently learned that, women are searching for the phrase, why do I feel invisible at 45? And it got me thinking of my own journey in feeling invisible. And I did notice when I started becoming invisible. I did notice that I didn't have all the looks, the people looking, all the eyes on me. I don't want to say all, but, I didn't turn heads the way that I used to. And at first I was like, wait a minute, what's happening, people? But a part of me felt relieved. A part of me felt relieved that I was no longer the girl that people were turning around to look at and stare at and look at my boobs and look at my butt. It felt like I could finally just breathe and just be. I developed at a very young age. I mean, by the time I was 12 years old, I already had boobs. By the time I was 15, I had C cups. And back then, a C cup was big. Nowadays, it's almost nothing. But back in the day, a C cup was big. And on a 15-year-old girl, it brought a lot of unwanted and disgusting attention. I became aware that I had a big butt when I was somewhere between 5 and 7 because someone made a comment about my body. And ever since, I've been self-conscious about my big butt. And then I hit 12. And I'm growing boobs. And gosh, it was before 15. My boobs were already large and I felt like in the way. And as a 12-year-old who's developing, I got a lot of very unwanted, uncomfortable, disgusting attention and comments, and I wanted to be invisible. And how disgusting that a 12-year-old little girl has to go around having to hide herself because grown-ass men are looking and saying things to me and trying to touch me. Nobody prepares you for this. And so I became very self-conscious about my body and my body parts, and always felt like I had to try sometimes and hide my body. And it was hard. I was unsuccessful, and I walked around my entire life just watching people look at me. So when I realized I'd become invisible, a part of me felt relief that I could just be, and nobody cared to look at me. And I was okay with it. So that is my own journey with feeling invisible. Now, as I've reached more of my mid-50s, I'm going to be 54 this year. Yeah, that's kind of taken a little bit of a different toll. Wow, yeah, I am invisible. But it hasn't been, I feel like, as hard for me as it might be for other women. Now, one of the other things that women are looking for or searching for on the internet is the psychological impact of midlife body changes. I don't really have the answer for that, but I just did a quick little search, and in psychology, ambiguous loss is grief without a clear ending or a body to bury. And that's this ambiguous loss that we are experiencing, is this grief of when does it end, right? Like, when is that transition? This transition into perimenopause can take 10 years. And so it's unclear to me right now when this ambiguous loss, this grief ends. I mean, let's face it, when we lose someone and we bury them, we don't know how long we're going to grieve for. Grief comes in waves. So I'm just thinking through this here. I'm not in any way, shape, or form prepared for this episode. I did some very quick searches on what other women were experiencing and got some talking points that I can bring up. And so I'm just processing this as I'm sharing it with you, because it's something real and life that I'm experiencing. Now, there's this other part of feeling betrayed by our own bodies, by feeling that our body is a traitor. For many women in their 40s and 50s, we've spent potentially decades trying to optimize our lives and our bodies and how they function, and getting to know it so that we can feed it in a way that feels good to our bodies, so that it supports us in a certain way, the nutrition that it needs to allow us to run marathons and to bear children and so on and so forth. And when that body stops responding to the old inputs, the diet, the exercise, the grit, it feels like a betrayal. Come on, girl. We've been doing this for decades. Catch up. Come with me. I'm doing all the things that have always worked, and it's not working anymore. So all of a sudden, I'm finding myself wishing for that younger body. Is that you too? We grieve the loss of a body that could bounce back or run on 5 hours of sleep. So what would it look like to properly eulogize that younger version of ourselves so we can move into this next phase of our lives, loving ourselves, loving our bodies, getting to know it again, and what works and what doesn't. And it's hard to know what works for me right now. I feel like I'm in this limbo of like this reverse adolescence stage. I had a coaching call with a client earlier today, and I was coaching her on letting go of her old identity to embrace her new identity, the one that she longs to embody. And how appropriate is that, right? I didn't see that in that moment until I'm saying it right now. Like, wow, like what a coincidence, how serendipitous that this is exactly what I need. But what I suggested to her on that call was, I suggested that she do a beautiful, soft, luxurious, just something that feels so beautiful and nourishing, a ritual to say goodbye to that old identity. And so maybe that's what I need to do. It's do a little ceremony, come up with something that just feels really beautiful and nourishing. It's making me emotional just thinking about it. To say goodbye to that body, that shape that I had for so many decades. If I developed at 12, that's 4 decades. And so for this client, I told her, write a letter to this old identity. Write a letter to her. Thank her for everything that she has carried you through. And so at this moment, I'm talking to myself now. Thank that body for trying to defend itself against unwanted attention. Thank it for bearing my children. Thank it for allowing me to run marathons and all the things that I put it through for the hundreds and thousands of miles I have ran and hiked. And now it's taking me around the world. And so I've always thanked my legs alone, but now it's really more of thanking the body. And so I envision myself writing this letter and saying goodbye to that old shape, that old body, the way that it used to be. And doing a ritual, a ceremony. Maybe I'm going to throw this in a fire, and I don't know, maybe I'm going to get a bunch of flowers and create a beautiful little altar and in the bath. Oh, that's what I'm thinking now. Maybe I can do this in the bathroom and in the bathtub, around the bathroom, around my beautiful clawfoot tub, and just sit and have a beautiful milk bath and music and candles, and make this a little ceremony for myself. Like a rite of passage ceremony almost, it feels like. It reminds me of the quinceañeras that we hold in the Latino communities to welcome a girl into womanhood. So I think we need our own sweet 16 of sorts, a midlife goddess party. That is why now I'm thinking that a 50th birthday party celebration is something that we should all do. I didn't have one. I'm turning 54 this year, so maybe next year for my 55th birthday, 55, I'll throw a party to celebrate this next chapter and enter into seniorhood. Wow, I'm going to be a senior next year. This is just crazy. Part of me feels excited to become a senior and to finally feel and be seen as this wiser version. And then there's this very real part of me that is showing up for me lately, of this that's leaving that old version of me behind. Now I'm only going to have the fotos y recuerdos to keep that woman alive. And for those of you who do not speak Spanish, that means, well, photos, pictures, and memories. And it's a song by Selena called Fotos y Recuerdos. Beyond how we look, aging is also about how we feel from the inside. And while I feel amazing in my accomplishments, the reality is that sometimes there's stiffness in the morning, there's changing skin texture, there's this reality that I can no longer just bounce out of bed and jump like I used to when I was running late. I have to make sure that I'm propping myself up with my arm in case my back's gonna pop. And, and again, the changing skin texture on my face, that's been a reality for years. I've noticed that a while back. And I love treating myself to facials. And I have this new Bond Charge infrared light therapy mask, which I love. I got that for Christmas and I use it every other day. And the opposite days, I use this chocolate clay mask that I got in Belize in my last trip in December. And it has turmeric and cinnamon and all these beautiful powders to reduce inflammation. And I also got this lymphatic facial brush that, it just feels so good on the skin. And I love creating these little rituals to pamper myself because I've noticed how my skin is changing and these things help me. And of course I use a gua sha on my face as well. And I use that quartz roller on my face that I keep in the fridge so that it's nice and cold. And I love the glow that it gives me. I love treating myself to these things. And these are things that I didn't do as regularly in my 40s or 30s, and forget doing any of this in my 20s. I was lucky if I took my makeup off then. But these are things that I really am enjoying doing now. And I have in the past had Botox, and I do love it. I haven't had it in a couple of years, but I'm all for doing whatever feels good to you to make yourself feel better, whatever part of your journey you are on. Some people are embracing going gray. I'm not there yet. And I don't know when I'll be. And I don't know when I'm going to be okay just no longer doing these treatments on my face. Like I love all this stuff and I love the glow that it gives me. And yeah, part of it is the fact that the jowls are there and the wrinkles are there. And yeah, there are grays. All of it. It takes some time to get used to. And that's my journey. And I know that for many it is as well. For many women, there is often a silent grief around changes in libido or physical intimacy. I like to ask a lot of questions. I like to ask a lot of uncomfortable questions of my friends. So I've had these kinds of conversations with some of them, and some of them have expressed. One of my friends has expressed that her libido's gone through the roof and she feels like she's 18 again. Well, yay her, because none of my other friends have expressed that. I've had friends who've talked about how sexual intercourse has become painful. And there's all kinds of things going on. There's tiredness. And I had a podcast episode with the founder of Bloomy, which is sexual arousal toys and lubes and oils. And we talked about this. We had this conversation. So I'll link that in the show notes if you'd like, or go searching for it. But we've had this conversation on this podcast about that and how we can alleviate that. But that's not what this episode about is. Again, this is just about sharing the journey and what's coming up for me, so that you know that you're not alone, and maybe we can get together. Maybe we can have a conversation about what this is all like for you. And then there's the thinning hair. I'm definitely experiencing that. My hair ponytail is like so much thinner than it used to be. I lose hair all the time. It's not what it used to be. And so all these things are very real. And, I know that there's a lot of women out there who are talking about aging gracefully and embracing all of it. And I love that. And also, there's the reality that some of us could take a little bit longer to get there and to embrace that. So some thoughts I'm going to ponder and I'm going to leave with you too. Michelangelo said he just carved away the stone to reveal the statue. If we view the losses of aging, the thinning skin, the slowing down, etc., as a pruning of the extraneous, what is the essential self that is finally being revealed to you? That's a good one. That's a good one I came up with. I'm going to ponder that. I'm going to leave that with you as well. Here's a couple more questions to ponder. How does healing your own body grief break the cycle for the daughters and younger women watching us? Oof. And one more. Are we grieving for ourselves, or are we grieving the beauty standard we were forced to uphold? Wow, another great one. So in closing, what I know for sure is that 10 years from now, I'm going to look back and wish for the body I had today. So I'm going to ponder that as well. Right now, this is where I'm at. And this is what is coming up for me. And I know that I'm not alone in this. And if this is you, I'm right there with you. So message me on Instagram or leave a comment and share with me what resonated with you. Thank you so much for being here. Hasta la próxima.